So I'm going to talk about two species. We're working with Hawaiian petrels primarily. That's where the bulk of our funding is directed. We work with red shearwaters, which are not a listed species, but are in decline and are nesting in areas that are really accessible to people. So they're a really good opportunity to involve volunteers in helping to manage these colonies and try and achieve our goals. In the lighter blue there, you can see the Haleakala National Park. They were ungulate fenced in 1990, and they've had basically 30 years of predator control going there. I don't have data from them at all, but I also want to keep them in the picture because really they are doing some of the most significant work to help to recover this species. The other areas, the Alpine Wildlife Sanctuary is a Division of Forestry and Wildlife Sanctuary, and it's been managed under a habitat conservation plan that the Daniel K. Inouye telescope has been doing for the last 5 years. This last year was their last year working there, and we're still trying to come up with exactly how that will be managed in the next years, but hopefully we will get a continuing management in that site as well. So it was fenced in November of 2013, and there have been 5 years of predator control there. The Department of Hawaiian Homelands is managed also under a habitat conservation plan for the Oahe Wind Facility. 5 years of cat and mongoose trapping there, and that is not fenced against ungulates. And then the Nakula Natural Area Reserve and the Kahiki Nui Forest Reserve are actually adjacent to one another, and the Maui Nui Seabird Recovery Project manages those. So the ungulate fence went in there in 2014, and we've been predator controlling for 6 years there. So here are the areas where in Nakula and Kahiki Nui between about 6,800 feet here, 9,200 feet here. This is ungulate fenced across here. Just for interest, this is where the kiwi-kiu, the Maui parrotbill, will be translocated next November. They've been working at preparing that and doing predator control down there, which undoubtedly benefits us up here because a lot of the predators we see appear to be coming uphill. There is no water up here, and the vegetation just becomes extremely sparse. There is no fence. There's fence on 3 sides here, but ungulates, goats, cattle, and pigs are still capable of getting in there and do. The Alpine Wildlife Sanctuary is completely fenced against ungulates. None of these fences are predator fences. They're ungulates. And then the wedge-tailed shearwater, the Iwa'ukani. On Molokai, the Nature Conservancy does the majority of the work there. We work with them with technical advice and banding every year. We go in the spring and at night and read bands on adults and band unbanded birds. In the fall, as just before fledging, we go and band chicks during the day. 20 years of cat and mongoose trapping there, and a resistant predator fence in there. It's a 2-inch plastic fence that was put up in 2016. Havea Point on Maui is managed, again, we have the same banding and assistance with, used to be Maui Land and Pine, and they've transferred it now to the Kapalua Resort Association. They fund predator control that goes on there for 18 years. For the first years there, interesting to know that an employee of Maui Land and Pine, Isao Nakagawa, noticed that there were a couple of birds there. He kept finding dead ones, and he went to Fern Duval and said, "What can I do about this?" And Fern set him up with trapping, and Isao did the trapping almost until he passed away 2 years ago. And now it's paid for. There was a little assistance in his later years, but really a remarkable member of the public who stood up. And then Kamaoli Beach Park is actually an active beach park where people are right next to the colony, and there's no fencing around it. We did trapping there last year, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Hokipa, in November of 2017, Division of Forestry and Wildlife finally got us a fence up there to to keep the cows out because it's a cattle pasture. And the cows used to come down and punch right through the burrows. And it's also an old dump where people would come in and dig for bottles, even when there were active burrows, chicks, eggs in them. So here are locations on Molokai, Momomi. Next to it, the Molokai Land Trust is working on, with American Bird Conservancy, to put an actual predator-proof fence around there. They have the 2-inch plastic-resistant fence up now. Momomi has also the plastic-resistant fence. So it keeps cats and dogs out, but rats and mongoose can get through quite easily. On Maui, the main colonies we have are Havea Point, we don't see Hokipa, and Kamaoli 3. We used to ban in a couple of other sites the black round dots, and for lack of resources, and when Pulama Lanai took over, they took over Hulapoe. We hope to include them back in our study here. That banding that we've been doing there was started by Fern Duval in about 2000, and Jenny Learned will be reporting on Saturday on data from that basically 20 years of banding and recoveries. And then for interest, these sites in red are all sites that are potential sites that we're looking to get community involvement to develop seabird communities there. Colonies where there were in the past birds there, and very much a part of Pacific Rim Conservation's ARC program. We want to provide those areas for birds to be able to establish who are losing their habitat in the Papahanaumokuakea. So what are we doing? Fencing is a major tool that we need. There's the hog wire fence that keeps ungulates out, 4 feet tall. For the most part, that'll keep out cattle, dogs, pigs, goats, but it won't keep out deer. If you've got deer in the area, it needs to go to 7 or at least 8 feet. And Roberta Swift identified this as what deters birds from not seeing the fence at night. So it minimizes collisions from the fence, and it's essential in a lot of places to put that on. This is the predator-resistant fence that's at Molokai, and the Molokai Land Trust has it in temporarily before they get their real predator-proof fence in. So it'll keep the dogs back and it'll keep the cats out, sort of. You still have to put the curved top on it so the cats can't climb over it to get into the area. And it probably has a much shorter life, but the TNC fence on Molokai is the first one that we know of that's gone in, and we're still watching that to see how it survives. A deer running full bore to get away from something will go right through it. So it is repairable, and as with any fence, you have to be on top of maintenance all the time. And then just to show where we need to be headed, these are Pacific Rim's stainless steel chain link fence that's Nihoku and James Campbell, and that is where we want to get to. That's the kind of fence you need. It'll minimize your maintenance costs, and with a stainless steel hood to keep anything from going over from the outside. Predator control, basically traps is what we work with. Kamate snap traps, the Belial body grip traps, and I've circled the padded leg hold trap here so you can see it. This is the cat's been taken out and dispatched before the picture was taken. Really the most effective trap that you can use for a cat is what we've found. Those really have to have, for us, because our site is so remote, have to have, and we work with Oahe Wind guys to do this, is the cell phone connected signal to tell you when you've got an animal in so that you can go and take care of it. Good. And for the petrels, so we started down here, number of burrows counted. The Alpine Wildlife Sanctuary with the DKIS guys has had a steady increase of burrows, but their reproductive success has been kind of unremarkable, and their methodology was not the same as what we were using and what the Oahe guys are. So as we move into taking over management, the next people doing that, we're going to try and get the management techniques to be the same, for largely using cameras to determine what your fledging success is. The sites are too remote to really go in and depend on regular visitation. And then in the green is the Oahe site, and you can see their burrow count has not gone up much, and they are the site that's not fenced. They have continuous problem with trampling of burrows by goats, largely. But their reproductive success has shown somewhat of an increase as well. Whereas in the Nakula Kahiki Nui, we started out with 5 burrows. We're up to 54 now. And our reproductive success continues to show an improvement. So ungulate fencing and predator control seems to be a good way to get started. Wedge-tailed shearwaters at Momomi, all we have here, because the TNC guys don't have the resources to really be doing reproductive success monitoring, is number of burrows. So the red line is the cats caught over the years. So they started back in 1999, 2000, and they caught cats. In 2006, they caught about 60 of them out there. Cat numbers have declined, and then the fence went in here, and cat numbers went way down. They had a cat that was in there that they struggled to get. So, but their burrow numbers continue to climb. The same as Havea Point, they are up at nearly 1,500 burrows now. The Uaukani reproductive performance on Maui, Kamaole 3 has no had predator control last year, but the only place it succeeded is where we had native vegetation, where the buffalo grass was in, the cats and the mongoose hide in there, and they eat the adults and the chicks. So out of 120 burrows, we got 3 chicks last year in the area where you have native vegetation. Havea and Hokipa, we have predator control, and then we have fencing, and we get fairly similar and increasing numbers of burrows over time. So kind of as a basic keys to getting going, fence out the predators and the ungulates, control the predators, and restore the native vegetation, and we are looking at improvement. Thank you.